What if the purchases that don't seem expensive are costing you more than the ones you worry about? A coffee here, a streaming service there, a quick meal because you're tired, none of them feels like a problem. But together, they can quietly consume hundreds of dollars. I'll show you how to find what those small expenses are really costing you and decide which ones are worth keeping. The hard part is that you may already know exactly what your major bills cost. You know the mortgage or rent. You know the car payment. You know the insurance. You probably have a pretty good idea what the utilities will be. So when there should be $500 or $700 left after those bills, you expect that money to still be there. Then you look at your account. Maybe there's $180 or less left. Nothing major happened. There wasn't a $500 emergency. You didn't buy a television or take an expensive trip. So where did the money go? Money doesn't just disappear, it went somewhere. It left a little at a time. And that's what makes this kind of spending so difficult to see. We tend to judge each purchase individually instead of looking at what all of those purchases are doing together. Once you see them together, the numbers can look very different. Suppose you spend $6 on coffee 3 times a week. That's only $6 when you're standing at the counter. But that's about $78 a month. Add a $15 streaming service. A couple of $20 takeout meals during the month. Maybe $10 here and there at the convenience store. Then add the other little purchases that barely get your attention. None of those purchases looks like the reason your money is disappearing. But that's the problem. You're looking at each expense through a single purchase lens. It's only $6. It's only $15. It's only $20. Instead, look at it through a monthly total lens. How much are all of these choices costing me together? That's a completely different question. Knowing what your major bills cost tells you where a large part of your money goes. It doesn't tell you what happens to everything that's left. And until you can see that second part clearly, it's difficult to make good decisions about it. Because you can't decide whether something is worth the cost until you know what the cost actually is. Here's where the numbers can become surprising. Imagine that all those smaller purchases and changing expenses total $400 a month. That's $4,800 a year. Now we're no longer talking about a few coffees or a streaming service. We're talking about nearly $5,000 a year. That money could have gone towards savings, paying down debt, building an emergency fund, taking a vacation, or simply giving you more wiggle room every month. But there's another cost. When you don't know where that $400 went, you may assume the problem is somewhere else. So you keep wondering why there isn't enough left for the things you plan to do with that money. The problem isn't necessarily that every small purchase was a bad decision. Because it's not. The problem is that you never decided whether the total was worth it or not. And that's the part we can fix. You don't have to track every penny or eliminate everything you enjoy. You just need a way to make the invisible total visible. Start by looking at the last 30 days. Don't begin by cutting anything. That's important. First, find the spending that tends to disappear into the background. Coffee. Eating out. Delivery. Subscriptions. Convenience store purchases. Apps. Fees. Entertainment. And any other purchases that individually make you think, that's not much. Group similar purchases together and calculate the monthly total. Now ask a different question. Not, can I afford $6 for this? Ask, am I comfortable spending $78 a month on this? Do the same thing with each category. That's where you regain control. You may look at one category and say, absolutely. I enjoy that, I use it, and it's worth $80 a month to me. Keep it. You may look at another and think, I'm spending $120 a month on this and I barely care about it, That's where you have a decision to make. This isn't about eliminating every small pleasure from your life. It's about seeing the real price before deciding whether the purchase deserves that much of your income. Once the total is visible, you're no longer guessing where your money went. You're choosing where you want it to go. Here's what I would do first. Choose just one category of smaller spending. Don't try to overhaul everything today. Maybe it's coffee. Maybe it's eating out. Maybe it's subscriptions. Go through the last month and add up that one category. Let's say Beth looks at her takeout purchases. She remembers spending $18 here and $24 there. None of those purchases bothered her. Then she adds up the entire month. $186. Wow, that's a lot. Now she has useful information. She doesn't have to decide that takeout is bad. She only has to answer. Is takeout worth $186 a month to me? Maybe her answer is yes. Maybe she'd rather spend $100 and put the other $86 towards something she cares about more. Either decision can be intentional. That's the goal. Pick one category. Find the monthly total. Decide whether the value you're receiving is worth what that category is actually costing you. Then move to another category when you're ready. Small purchases aren't automatically the problem. Invisible spending is. Once you add those purchases together, you can finally see what they're really costing you and decide which ones deserve your money. But sometimes money is leaving your paycheck for a completely different reason. You've already made a commitment to pay it. And the cost of that commitment can reach far beyond the monthly payment. That's where we're going next. Your debt is costing you more than money.